let's go through a scenario. Let's say, Balfour, I break into your home and I have a knife and I want to steal something. So what is a reasonable degree of force you can use to prevent me from carrying out this act of criminality in your home?
It would depend, of course, what you're doing with the knife.
Folks, I'm going to be honest with you. This story made me lose my mind just a little bit. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the situation with the Lindsay man defending his home and being charged by the police. We're going to be taking a look at Scott Moe on the CBC and what's going on with the canola tariffs from China, as well as Bonnie Critchley is apparently not done with Pierre Poilievre after the by-election. So without further ado, let's dive into the news. All right, so first of all, we got to talk about this crazy story that's coming out of Lindsay, because I just don't understand how people think that Canada is not broken. Now, this is a quick recap if you're unaware of the whole story. It says a man accused of attacking an intruder inside his Lindsay, Ontario home early Monday morning used a knife, according to the court documents. So this is the individual defending his home. His name is Jeremy McDonald. He is facing charges of aggravated assault and assault with a weapon after an altercation took place inside his apartment. So this guy, Michael Kyle Breen, who police say broke into his house, faces several charges, including possession of a weapon, which they haven't announced. However, they say that court documents are telling us that the defender used a knife, but they're not saying what the perpetrator had, even though they're saying he was with possession of a weapon. Breaking and entering, as well as theft. He was airlifted to Toronto's hospital following an incident with serious injuries, most likely from the knife attacks.
Well, if you don't want to get shot or beaten up, don't break into people's houses. It's pretty straightforward.
The perpetrator, Bren, of no fixed address, has a lengthy criminal record, including prior breaking and enter charges. There was a warrant out for his arrest at the time of the incident. So this guy is already a problem person. And what I find very strange is, again, they're not explaining what weapon he was possessing. Although from Rebel News, it says sources say that the weapon in Brennan's possession was a crossbow. Sources say Brennan charged at McDonald, hitting him in the head with the crossbow's stock. Again, I haven't really seen any other articles talking about this. No matter where I scour, I don't really see this. There was a video that was released by Rebel News that was outside of the property. They even showed where the guy broke in. He purposely climbed a fire escape and went through a window, which I don't even know how you would have found that unless you had been previously there.
You know, it gets even more disturbing. He entered Mr. McDonald's residence via a window. That would be the window of the room where his daughter normally sleeps. Thank goodness the daughter, who is a minor, was not home that day. This fire escape, this is the beginning of how the home invasion happened. As you can see, folks, this is a brand new set of locks and chain. These locks and this chain were not here on the morning of the incident, and Breen made his way into the home of McDonald by that window.
Now, there are reports saying that these two knew each other. They're around the same age. They're both in their early 40s. So who really knows what the altercation was about? But again, they are claiming that this is a small town. Everybody knows each other. They most likely knew each other. Now, yesterday, Doug Ford, I'm sure you saw, he kind of went on a little bit of a tirade there, talking about how the gentleman shouldn't be charged for defending his own home. And all of the interviews that I've seen so far of other people on the street have said the same thing. They are either surprised that he is being charged or saying that they should be able to defend themselves without a problem.
The alleged intruder faces 4 charges, including breaking and entering and possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. The resident is charged with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon, and that is prompting strong reaction.
Did everyone hear about the story in Lindsay?
Ontario's premier weighs in.
I know if someone breaks into my house or someone else's, you're going to fight for your life. This guy has a weapon. You're going to use any force you possibly can to protect your family.
Similar views on Lindsay's main street, not far from where the incident happened.
I think you should be able to use a lot like any force necessary to defend your home and your family.
The person should be able to, prevent the guy, because who knows what that perpetrator would have did to him.
It's self-defense, personally. It kind of sucks a bit for him.
Now, me personally, I'm also of that mindset. If anybody decided to come into my house at 3 o'clock in the morning, you bet your ass I would do anything to defend my kids, my wife, my whole house, my family. And so when I'm hearing the so-called criminal experts or whatnot on the media yesterday, this is what really got me going. So take a listen to what they had to say about proportionality and how you should handle this when in these types of situations.
So let's get to the police first, laying the charges, because some of the anger is being directed toward the police, saying, why would you charge this person? He's just defending his property. He's defending his family. He's defending himself. Do the police have to lay a charge in the moment?
No, the police actually would lay a charge if they believe on reasonable grounds that a crime might have been committed. So in Canada, our self-defense law is actually alive and well. It's Section 34 of the Criminal Code. People are allowed to defend themselves. But if the police believe that the defender has used excessive force that's disproportionate to the force used against them, they can be charged.
So now it's my responsibility as the defendant of a crime that's happening to me to figure out if my proportional retaliation is in line with what they are doing to me. When they're the ones who put me in that situation by breaking into my house at 3 o'clock in the morning with an undisclosed weapon as of right now, I have to now think about how I retaliate, because the police could say, well, it wasn't proportional, so we got to charge you for that. Do you realize how stupid this sounds? But again, we're going to let him continue because he says contradicting things here. Take a listen.
So this really boils down to an appropriate use of force. And can a homeowner be expected to know what that is, Rob, in the moment? I mean, trying to put yourself in that situation that you're there in the sanctity of your home, you feel like your property, your family is under threat. It's just how clearly would a homeowner might be thinking at that stage or that point.
And I know you mentioned the case where a firearm was used in Collingwood, Ontario. That I could see being deemed excessive, but in this case, a firearm was not used. So furthermore, to Jeff's point, like, how do you, in the heat of the moment, how do you decipher that when you're not talking firearms?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So to be honest, our laws are fairly tolerant, and homeowners don't have to, what the law says, measure with a nicety the amount of force that they use. So if force is being used against them, they're allowed to use force that even exceeds the force being inflicted upon them. But there's still a tolerance.
So our laws are fairly tolerant, and you don't need to use the same nicety as they're using on you, meaning you could be a little bit more aggressive, but our laws are still tolerant, so you need to be aware that the police could say, hey, that's a little bit too excessive, we gotta charge you. Like, what are we saying here? And listening to all of this reminded me of a podcast that I saw 2 years ago, and they were talking about the same thing. These guys are from the States, and they basically, it was kind of comedic the way they were talking about how you had to learn the Kama Sutra of defending yourself. But just take a listen to how ridiculous the situations need to be in order for you to be scot-free of doing anything wrong.
My house got robbed before, and I saw them, and I went to go get my gun, and they all hopped the fence and stuff like that. When the cops came, I was just trying to really understand what the law would be. They said that if, I got cornered, because there's 4 dudes. If I got cornered by all 4, and I felt like my life was in danger, I could probably shoot and get away with it. But the problem is, if the minute I pull out a gun, and all 4 of them get scared and turn their backs on me, if I shoot, then I'm in deep shit.
Really?
You should rob people like this.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because you're already in danger with 4 random people in your house.
Let's say some dude's on top of you, right?
This guy's a really good robber.
And somehow, if I stab him here, that's cool.
But then if I'm on top of him like this,
I come like this, now it's assault on my end.
I gotta know the whole fucking
What do you mean
Kama
you're not in
Sutra
danger?
of killing.
You
Imagine 2 dudes, but they're both very versed in the law. Illegal. We need a referee.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, it does seem like you do need a referee. But as I said, those guys are in the States, and in the States they have castle law, which is the ability to defend yourself with force, even deadly force. And castle law falls under 3 different levels or tiers, however you want to look at it. And I think these guys are in California, which they have the lowest tier, so they can't use deadly force. But somewhere like Texas, it's basically shoot on sight. So if somebody stepped on your property and you don't know them, you could blast them for all you cared. But Canada, we do not have that. And according to this criminal defense lawyer, we also need to start factoring in so many other aspects when somebody breaks in, or if we're in this situation, like what's the age of the person? How big are they? Are we able to take hold of them? What's the weapon that they're using? Like, just utter nonsense.
It's not the Wild West. Just because someone breaks in doesn't mean that it's open season on that intruder. There's so many factors that the criminal code says needs to be considered to make a decision whether self-defense exists or not. You know, there's any number of things. It's what force is threatened. Did the intruder have a weapon? The size disparity, age. There's all kinds of things like that. History between the parties. What the homeowner did towards the intruder. So if someone comes in with a 2x4, you don't get to shoot them. At least if they're not doing anything with the 2x4.
I can't believe I just heard that guy say that. That is just so embarrassing. And I know I've been on the subject for a bit. We will move on to the next story. But before we do, I want you to listen to this criminal defense lawyer. When the host asks her, well, can't the defendant just say he feared for his life? You know, this was his way of self-defense. I want you to see her jump through these hoops of saying, well, there has to be assessments and objective and subjective matter, yada, yada, yada. Just to kind of say at the end, yeah, anybody would say that this is self-defense.
Could the homeowner argue that he was afraid for his life? What then?
Yes. So then it gets really into, in order to assess self-defense, there's objective elements. So you look at the objective reality, but there's subjective. So what the person is thinking, elements to that. And as long as the subjective assessment is reasonable in the circumstances, taking into account that it's that person's house, it's late at night, it's dark, you're afraid. So all of those things get taken into account, and it probably in this circumstance, especially if you're in fear of your life, you would do anything to defend that. It just really comes down to the assessment. Is it reasonable to be afraid for your life when you have an unknown intruder in your home? The answer to that, probably especially within the public, the answer to that would be a resounding yes.
Well, there you have it, folks. If you weren't sure if you should fear for your life because somebody broke into your house in the middle of the night, well, now you have the confirmation that it's okay to be scared. I'm lost for words at this point. Moving on to the next story, we have Bonnie Critchley, and she was being interviewed by CTV, and she basically alluded to voter or electoral fraud, and then also said that she was gunning after Pierre Poilievre. Take a listen to this.
Well, I showed up, I stood up because I wanted to explain to the Conservative Party that we were not tools to be stepped on and discarded in one man's ego-driven trip to be NPM.
By that, do you mean the residents of your riding?
I mean my neighbors in our communities, yep.
Now,
and so with 10%, I think we sent that message that no, it's not a free trip, you got to work for it.
So finishing second? That's okay by you?
That's okay by me. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed. I did expect a higher percentage of the vote. My polling showed me running a little bit higher, but then the disinformation campaign came in, and then there was shenanigans during Election Day, so I'm not 100% surprised on how everything turned out, because it is our home, it is our riding. I still live there. He is now my MP, so he's going to get all sorts of letters from me if he doesn't show up. Because I spoke with Laura Babcock on the O Show yesterday, and what I said was that I challenge Monsieur Poiliev to actually come back to Battle River Crowfoot and prove me wrong, because I don't think we'll ever see him again.
You mentioned a moment ago, Election Day shenanigans.
Yes. Yes, I am going to leave whether it was legal or illegal up to the Commissioner for Canadian Elections and the RCMP, but there were mocked up Elections Canada signs that had the appropriate disclaimer in font about that big on a 3 by 6 foot sign in a slightly different shade of yellow than there was. And then there was issues where DROs, deputy returning officers, were handing out the large print books only with all the parties up front and all the independents in the back. Plus, there were some other issues reported by my scrutineers that have been reported to the commissioner, yes.
Yeah, and ahead of Election Day, you expressed frustration with the longest ballot group flooding the by-election with candidates. What do you feel their impact was on the outcome?
Oh, they cost me votes. They may have cost me the election, because as I'm going door to door to door to door, I'm having to say, I am not part of the longest ballot.
They may have caused her the election. Did you hear that, folks? Because she was labeled as an independent and there was the other 213 candidates or whatever it was as independents as well because of the longest ballot, she's now blaming them, saying that they cost her the potentially beating Pierre Poilievre. That she could have had way more than the 10%, which kudos to her. 10% actually was quite surprising that she got that. She beat, as they stated, some of the other established people like a Liberal Party member, the NDP, the Green, all that kind of stuff. So an independent to get second place, it is pretty impressive. But I don't know where she was thinking. Like, she says that her poll numbers, her internal polling gave her a higher number. What did she think? That she was going to get the 80% and Pierre was going to get the 10%? Like, I don't know what delusional mindset she has here, but as she goes on continuing, she talks about his leadership review and that she's not done yet.
This is not who I'm with. I am here because I'm your neighbor and this isn't right. And I had a few doors slammed in my face before I could get that out. And then, of course, the rest of the parties, especially with the books, the way things were done, with the change in the ballots and everything, I was the only one who really had a problem because I had the exact same party marking, independent, underneath my name as everybody else. As for his leadership review, well, he's got the lowest numbers of a conservative leader in recent history, so we may be doing this again in May.
Okay, well, on that point, maybe
Sorry,
that's
not May, March.
Maybe that's an opportunity for us to wind down the conversation. Does that mean Bonnie Critchley will seek office again? Will you take another stab at running for federal politics?
Well, I can tell you, I'm going to go sleep for a week first, because I didn't come off the campaign trail until 11:30 at night, Sunday night. I'm going to go sleep for a week, and then we're going to see what happens. But I can tell you, I'm not done yet.
Now, if you guys know me, I typically don't insult people or call anybody names, but she gives off heavy Karen vibes where she needs to talk to the manager because she's upset with something. And with the fact that she said she's not going anywhere, she's going to be sending Pierre Poilievre lots of emails if he doesn't show up and whatnot. Like, this is not somebody that you want as your MP. Trust me, folks. She's not going to be a good representative. But now moving to the last story, which is with Scott Moe. This guy, if I didn't like Danielle Smith so much in Alberta, he would be the next top person. I think him and Danielle Smith are fantastic premiers. They do great jobs. But he was on CBC yesterday talking about the canola tariffs from China that was implemented and basically bashing the federal government for not helping the industry as much as they should and focusing too much on industries that don't really matter, that they dwarf, like the EV industry. Take a listen.
Beijing, of course, they claim that this is the result, that they're doing this because Canada is dumping cheap canola into their market. That's not obviously what's widely believed to be the reason, but what do you make of their claim?
Well, it's not the reason. But what we need to do is, as a province, and I would say as a nation, is to sit down with the leaders in China and to forge a path forward, not only for the canola industry, or not even only for the ag industry or the seafood industry as well is impacted by some of these tariffs, but I think for our broader trade relationship with China. China is a growing market. It's often a premium market, and they're increasing the things that they buy. And as we diversify, some of our additional production away from maybe places like the United States, China needs to be a viable option. And so we need to be in China. I've committed to going in the next number of weeks. I'm inviting the Prime Minister and federal ministers along, as ultimately, if we are going to advance that conversation, it needs to be a nation-to-nation conversation, and we would be there in a supportive role.
Well, I presume that part of that conversation will be about what the real reason is, if that conversation happens, and that is Canada's 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. And Melanie Joly, the industry minister, says that support for electric vehicles and canola is not a choice between one or the other. So what's your sense of, if you were to have conversations with China and the Prime Minister was going to be there, about the government's urgency to help canola farmers when it has to also think about the other industries that are tied up in this?
Yeah, and they also have to, the federal government has to represent what is creating wealth for Canadians and what is employing 200,000 Canadians today, and that's the canola industry. It's a $45 billion industry, dwarfing any semblance of an EV industry that we have. And listen, with respect to whether it's the EV conversation or what that might be, we need to be sitting in front of our trading partner in China, advancing the whole of the conversation on what we are going to have with respect to market access for ag products, for other products as well. Moving forward, and EVs and the 100% tariff that we put on, and to really align us with U.S. trade policy. I think we're all aware of that. That's a card. That is a card that we, as Canadians, will have to look at some point in time, quite likely. But that isn't the only card that we have. Saskatchewan and Canada are long-term, sustainable, reliable suppliers of a number of different products, not just canola seeds, oil, and meal. To China. So we need to get there. We need to at least start the conversation. Right now, these tariffs are temporary, and we can't let them become permanent without getting in front of the Chinese leaders and the Chinese government. So I'm asking the federal government to engage in that nation-to-nation conversation, and committing to going myself to support that conversation happening.
Now, in my opinion, that has been one of the biggest missteps from the Carney government, is not actually trying to work to get the canola under control. Like the fact that they had implemented it when Trudeau was still around, got the 100% tariffs on oil and meal, and they haven't done anything since, and now they have the additional 76% on seed, but we still have the 100% EV tariff, even though we're not importing really anything, and I think they said we're only at like 6% of our EV sales. It doesn't make any sense. So hopefully they do make it to China, have a sit down, get to some sort of deal. But what do you guys think about this whole situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Any of the stories that I covered today, let me know what you feel about them. Sorry I went as long as I did on the first one, but it really frustrates me when there's such stupidity in our country. But as always, love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.